Hey, friends. I'm super excited for today's podcast, and I'm honored to have on Samuel White. He is a fellow believer and has gone from business ownership to full time real estate development. And it seems like we've been seeing each other kind of in the same circles recently, and decided I like this guy. I want to have him on and get to know him better. So that, Samuel, would you just mind just sharing a little bit about yourself and what you've been doing and how you got to where you are now?
Yeah, definitely. Kyle, thanks for having me on, and I'm excited to do this. We're doing this live in front of all y'all, getting to know each other, so um, get to level up together. But in short, I a quick rundown. But I was pre med undergrad, did not go to med school, took the MCAT, did all that thing, and then I actually started a marketing agency in San Diego. So I was doing a lot of marketing work in undergrad and was like, this is what I know how to do. This is what I'm going to start, and launched that. And then in turn from that agency went into the Airbnb space for quite a while. So ended up managing about 37 properties there, sold out of that, and went to law school with the plan of always having some sort of graduate degree, whether it was med school or law, which is like the natural fit. And during that, I actually discovered the commercial real estate space. I had no clue whatsoever that I could own apartment complexes, storage units, boutique hotels and stuff like that. I just had never heard when I was younger. So, getting the opportunity to continuously learn and earn at the same time is what I love about the space. And so I moved from San Diego, California to the lovely state of Oklahoma with my wife. We're here for a short amount of time. She's in residency, and I took a role, a W-2 role, actually outside of the entrepreneurial space, managing a 52-acre mixed-use development. Got a lot of hands-on right after my master's program. It's a $500 million project, and got to see kind of like, you know, the whole pieces fit together from what you're learning in a theoretical approach in school. So um, have now left that role, launching a real estate firm of my own called the Pivotal Investment. I'm sure we'll talk about it a little more in here. And it's a start over of sorts, but also a build up of all the skills that I've kind of accumulated over time. And it's a hard launch, but a soft launch at the same time. So excited to get to know you as well, Kyle.
Awesome. Yeah, it seems like you're just, I guess, a serial entrepreneur. Just man, you've had quite an experience. And I took a different path than you.
Yeah.
And it's always, I love hearing people like use your stories, like going through college and all that, trying different things, and now you finally kind of found what you want to do. And I definitely want to get into that. I would like to get to know you like personally. We haven't really gotten to know each other yet. It seems like we've. I didn't know who you were or anything about you before. I think it was it this week. We're I think it was
Yeah.
this week.
On
Yeah, we're part of. I think we're both
Pivotal.
the capital raising kickoff, the LinkedIn challenge, and then we met on. I think it was Tim Mai. Is
Yeah. And
is
I'm sure we'll
well,
see each other many more times.
yeah, definitely.
And
But
I think I just wanted to make a point as well, like of our conversation about, while I'm a multiple degreed individual, I truly don't think it matters at all because at the end of the day, you and I are on the same trajectory. And so, I mean, you just skipped a lot of student debt and a lot of time and effort placed into schooling to get to where we're going to both go. So
well, you've
always
done
like to
quite well for yourself, and I hope I'm on the same trajectory as you. But
absolutely are. Yeah.
I love it. I love it. So would you mind just sharing? I've been stalking you a little bit on
Mhm.
Facebook and LinkedIn.
Yeah.
Would you mind sharing just a little bit about your faith journey and what that's been like for you?
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you for asking too. I think I grew up in church. My parents super heavily involved, still to this day, at that same church. And I think I'm like any church kid where I was just growing and doing, the normal, just go to it. But then I think when I went to undergrad and had to face like, oh, okay, this is my own, relationship with God, having to like decide whether or not I'm going to go to all these parties and get drunk and be wild and, chase sorority girls and stuff like that. I think that was kind of my mindset at that point, was like, oh, I have to embrace Christ for myself. And so at 18, I truly gave my life to Christ and said, I know a lot of Christian kids go to college and just like go haywire. But that's not going to be me. I'm just going to, set my focus on still being a beacon of hope for people and following Christ. So I think that has led me to, that path that I just described. There's a lot of times that I'm like, how did this happen? What exactly in my journey is guiding me. And so it's been really cool to just kind of, connect with other entrepreneurs in faith. And that's a quick rundown.
Thanks. Yeah, thanks for the testimony. I think we all kind of go through that as Christians. We go through that stage where we try some things and we're like, okay, I want something better from this, right? So
yeah, definitely.
That's awesome. I noticed you posted that. So you met your wife on a flight, right?
Yeah.
A little bit about that story. Like, that's crazy. How does that happen? Because I usually sit next to a big dude or something.
Well, that's not your wife, I assume. But the quick story on that one too. So I had bought a last minute flight to go to Arizona to my basically my little cousin's graduation, and so they put me in a middle seat, and I was like, I don't like any middle seats. I ended up last minute just going up to the podium asking if they could switch me. They charged me a little bit, and they ended up putting me right next to my now beautiful wife. And we were just chatting away, very platonic. Like, I mean, obviously I was like, well, I'm very much an AirPod in ear kind of guy. Like, don't talk to anybody. And on this particular trip, I think we talked so much. And so a lot of people jokingly are like, oh, was it Southwest? Were you like scoping and being like, I wanted to sit right next to her? And no, it was not. Just I think it, I super fast. At the plane ride, I was going to ask for her number, and I had my business phone and my personal phone, and both of them had died. And I forgot the old school approach of like, I could write down her phone number. And so at that time, she had social media. She no longer does. She's very focused, more so than I. And so she added, or I put my name into her Facebook. She did not add me right away. So I was like, I got home and I was like, yo, this girl, I thought there was some synergy. I thought there was, something going on. Nothing. So not the next day, not the next day, not the next day. So I was like, okay, never mind, I guess. And then she finally added me like a few days later. And then I hit her up, and I didn't know what to say because I was like, it's been a few days. So I was like, oh, like, how was the flight? Did you land? And she was like, yes, I landed. Thank you very much. And so, we ended up, I went to, she's from Colorado. I went to undergrad in Colorado. So I I had a scheduled to go to a wedding in a couple weeks after that anyway. And so the girl that I was supposed to take previously was very platonic. And I was already talking to Sarah at this point, like numerous days. So I kind of was like, oh, I don't know if I can take her instead of you. And I did, and here we are. So fast paced too. I'm married for 2 years now. Yeah.
2 years. Okay.
Yeah.
I think a lot of the audience is probably younger, around my age. So
Sure.
Any advice on that? So
Yeah.
I've been married for 2 years, so I'm sure you've learned some things. And
I have. Yeah. Well, how old are you, Kyle?
I'm 27.
Okay, so that's actually when I met Sarah, right at, I just turned 27. So I think just kind of being open and then being very intentional about dating, especially when you're on an upward trajectory. and we'll talk about this a little bit later, but I am going to launch a whole program called Real Estate and Relationships. So I think the focus of both going hand in hand, not just, your personal relationships, like it could be our relationship, you and I getting to know each other, your marital relationship, your relationship with your parents, your siblings, etc. As you continue to grow, you kind of build those things up. So I think in 2 years of being married, I think, all the height of emotions happens when you're early dating period. And then, it keeps getting higher because you're engaged, and then it gets higher because you get married. And then people always say like, oh, the honeymoon phase will end. And I say, well, if you're already leveling up in all these other things in life, why would you not just want to level up your the closest relationship ever that you're supposed to ever have, So it's been really cool to have, all the things that they say, like your best friend, somebody that you go through life with, especially in the real estate space as well, having somebody that understands like, oh, sometimes there's going to be, big paydays, and sometimes there's going to be like, oh, I'm not really sure where the money's coming from for the next, a month, so, or two. So that's been all that has been happening in the last 2 years, and or plus 5 years since we've all been together essentially. So yeah, just choose your partner wisely. Essentially, is my message to anybody 25 through 27. Choose and ask a lot of questions. Get to know them as much as possible. And as a side note, and I don't feel like I was even going to bring this up, but we did abstain all the way, all the way to marriage. So our focus was just really getting to know each other as much as possible, falling really, really deeply in love with just our personalities and our, what we have, what we bring to the table, and then the cherry on top, for sure, after marriage adds a lot of greatness. So
I appreciate that. That's great advice, and as for me, that's something that I haven't really thought of that much yet, but it's definitely something on the horizon for me. So
yeah,
I'll take that advice. Thanks.
sure, yes, sir.
I would like to switch to what you're doing now. What was kind of catalyst for you to go over into the real estate, the development side, all that?
Yeah, so I think there's several things that happened there, but I knew I always loved real estate. I think even from teenage years, I was like, I'm enthralled with these large homes and this luxury lifestyle. But what does that actually equate to? So had I known somebody when I was younger that actually invested in real estate and not just the regular showing houses, which is also hard itself in certain times. But I would have probably already been in this. So I think, being a small business owner and a serial entrepreneur at some point, as you mentioned, where I was doing all these different ventures, I skipped so many different ones when I was speaking to you initially. So I had 5 businesses at one time, and, each of those businesses was bringing me in like 2K, 10K, 7K, and then 4K, et cetera. So I understood in my mind the idea of getting to the real estate side, getting really bigger paydays essentially, and then being able to one day float that money down to those smaller ventures that I still desire to have. So then I could partner with a guy. You're not a good example right now because you're going to be on my same trajectory, Kyle, but I could partner with essentially somebody like yourself that's younger and has these desires to build up. But maybe I don't have the time and energy anymore to start a small business, but I have the ability to fund that small business and say, hey, let's partner. You get the work in, put the sweat equity in, I'll put the cash in, and let's keep building together, So that's kind of my overall goal is, the love of real estate, understanding real estate, building out this empire and the structure, and then being able to give as much as possible to the other stuff down the road.
Awesome.
Yes.
I think mentorship for me is huge. What do you think about that? Do you have like a person in your life that is a mentor for you in real estate specifically?
Yeah, I have several. Part of the master's program that I got into was being able to really speak to these developers that I aspire to be like. Actually, just being able to text them and check in and say, "Hey, my performa is looking crazy. how do I fix this? Or, is it something that you would invest in? Is it something, and, should I continue to make this move? So I think it's a missed component of our generation. You're a little bit younger than me, but still, I mean, we're close enough in age. And I think um, having that mentor component really like alleviates a lot of mistakes and issues along the way because they've already made them. So that's something that, again, is not taught in school. That's something that you can essentially get from an individual that has walked the path that you're walking now. And they're like, oh, come, don't make that mistake. I've done that, try this instead. So,
Yeah, it's huge for me to be able to leverage someone else's experience and learn from their mistakes. I mean, obviously,
yeah,
we're gonna make mistakes as well, but to minimize them as much as possible.
absolutely. Absolutely.
But what is that? So I'm not really too familiar with development. I'm an underwriter on the specifically for apartments that are close to stabilized. So that's kind of my area. What does it look like for a developer when looking at plans and all that? Like, how much does it differ from like an existing building?
An existing structure, it's a lot slower, like way slower. So, I mean, you go from like identifying a piece of land that could potentially be a great space for a maybe apartment complex or a mixed use project. So we could put in, a movie theater and restaurants and, office space and, but to take that to an underwriter that is essentially going to be like, okay, we're going to create numbers out of thin air, but this is what we expect based upon the comps that are nearby. I say developers are dreamers and visionaries that essentially, we need a really strong team around us to be able to implement a lot of this stuff. So development is very, very lucrative for sure because it's time intensive, in the front end, it's cash intensive and time intensive. And then down the road, 10 years down the road, if you sell off pieces or, you're collecting after it's paid off, it's essentially the same thing as kind of the stabilized project at that point because it's paid itself off. So then you're collecting for sure.
Awesome. Yeah, I like the idea of creating something, and I think that would be awesome to kind of envision it and then see it come to life. Like that would be
Yeah.
great. But it seems like it makes what I do seem kind of simple. I feel like it's a little bit more
Yeah.
complicated. It might not be once you get to know it, but
Yeah, just like, I mean, I think it's just like, a couple of years ago, you might not have known what you're doing now. So it's the same thing that goes like, I truly knew 0% about development a couple of years ago. And I was not a good underwriter whatsoever. I hated Excel sheets. Now I kind of like, I don't necessarily like them, but I do enjoy like when I see the numbers work, it's very exciting for me. I'm like, oh, okay, let's go.
yeah, a year ago I had no idea I wanted to be in commercial real estate. Like I
Yeah.
knew I have a duplex that I've had for a while, and
Mhm.
I've known that I want to be in real estate. But I was thinking I'd scale like single family because I didn't think apartment buildings were attainable, right? But I
Absolutely.
had a huge mindset shift, and I think it's been about 6 months that I really got dove into what I'm doing now. And man, I enjoy it. Like you said, I don't necessarily like. I'm not a spreadsheet like an Excel wizard. I do like seeing the. Um, I guess you might be a wizard, but you said you don't necessarily enjoy it as much.
No, I absolutely would not say that I'm a wizard.
But I do like seeing it come to life. Like, hey, I'm going to plug these numbers in and kind of create this story of what this property's going to do, and then
Yeah.
seeing those numbers being able to work out. That's what I enjoy. So,
Yes.
um, as far as capital raising goes for something like that, how is that?
Yeah.
I mean, obviously, it's a longer process, and an investor might not see returns for a while. So, how does that differ?
Yeah. So I'd say that my main focus right now is both to learn the capital raising side of things because I have not had to do that myself, and then to connect with individuals like yourself and other partners to be able to pull upon resources when we say, hey, we're going to do a you know $50 million, $100 million raise. that's not realistic in my network alone. My mom and dad are going to be cheering for me all the time, but they can't give me 50 or $100 million. It's not a real thing. So yeah, it's the same concept as you're doing a multifamily where you're pitching investors, you're putting a deck together, etc. It just takes a lot more pooling of research, essentially, to say, okay, well, the reason why we decided to put this 300 unit apartment complex in at a luxury class A space, built from the ground up, is because dot dot dot. This is what our numbers are looking like on this particular segment of the land. And then the same thing goes, well, why would we put in a movie theater? Well, there's not a movie theater anywhere between this location and this location. We know that movie theaters are super, super popular in, Columbus, Ohio. And we were able to, ask those movie theaters essentially for their P&L and let us see kind of what they're making. Oh, maybe we should build a building and then rent that out to, a popular movie theater and, go from there. So that's kind of where you scale that out. And then I think when you're doing typical concepts like what I just mentioned, which is restaurants, office, apartment complexes, etc., those assets are not unheard of, I would say, in the development space. So a lot of institutional investors and accredited investors are looking for that kind of stuff. They're like, well, how can I get into projects like I want to do this. I want to be, a passive investor. So and the more that you meet them, and that's what I've been focused on right now, which is where we got to meet, is okay, well, I need partners like Kyle that he's going and he's working really hard to make sure he's got his, investors that he's lining up. But I also need to be able to know how much to essentially compensate Kyle for his team and his efforts and his hard work when he brings in, maybe some funds for my future developments. So it's been a cool learning, just a cool learning time, and really fun to just connect with a lot of people to see kind of what investors are looking for.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I'm just getting into I guess trying to attract investors, and it's like you said, like it is syndicating is attainable, but it does require networking. As far as if you want to raise capital, man, it takes a lot of networking, and like say, like your network is your net worth, right?
Yeah.
That's very important. And I noticed in your LinkedIn profile, I guess you're passionate about the asset management side of things too, which is, man, that's like an overlooked thing. Like a lot of people focus on, especially as a newer investor, which is understandable because we just want to get a deal, right? But like, what do we do when a deal closes? Like, I think that's so important, and it's something I want to learn more about. So just touch on that a little bit.
Yeah, so I think the difference in my investment strategy and my mindset is, so I take that back to real estate and relationships idea. So my focus is never to have an individual invest with me one time, and my focus is to get them to invest over and over and over again. So that means a little bit more tangible, hands-on in the asset management side of things to make sure I can do everything I can to make sure that this asset is moving forward. So it's not about a quick money development, for instance, or you're in multifamily. Those can be really lucrative for individuals that are managing those deals. But what are you doing? Are you doing the same effort on year one as you are on year five? When you're putting in some, planning to sell it or dispose of it. So I think what I've recognized, especially in the multifamily space, from dealing with a lot of property managers here in Oklahoma, I've met with a ton of property managers that say that the ownership or the asset manager will realistically only visit one or two times in their tenure. They've owned this property for 3 to 5 years, and then they're like, I don't get any, I don't get any intel from what they're looking for. The reason being because once they start getting that cash flow and they're happy, it's just, typical for them to receive a nice check. They're not talking to their property manager about how can we level up. Now we've got this stabilized, we've got this good. So what do we do next to make sure that this asset is moving to the next level? Which might mean sometimes if you're going to be investing money into making these properties, getting these properties ready after they're the tenant moves out, upgrading them a little bit, but also upgrading the pricing. And so I found when I was talking to a property manager, she's incentivized for just getting people, the occupancy, essentially getting the level really high. She's not incentivized at all for, raising the rents. So that's where an asset manager is in play to be able to say, well, again, our overall goal for this asset is to, sell it off one day. And we want to make sure that the overall asset, is protected. And so that's kind of what I've found some passion for in the last several years is just like, when you're dealing with people's money and their overall portfolio, the focus should be bigger than just one particular project or, getting them to invest or, you gotta think about it for the lifetime.
Yeah, absolutely. Um, because commercial real estate is valued based strictly off of what or net income it generates.
Sure.
Yeah, it is important to try to like maximize that, and not just for right, like you said, not just get it stabilized where it's cash flowing, but keep improving on it and try to maximize it because most of the gains are realized on sale of the property. So
Right.
that's huge.
Mhm.
I so you talked a little bit about your why. I would like to get into that. I'm super intrigued by. So was it called real estate relationship? I'm sorry, I can't remember what.
Yeah, you're good. Yeah, yeah. So, real estate and relationships is, I haven't not started yet, but I will start a podcast going forward, and it's also we'll break that down into a coaching program. But I think that for the longest time, I was always like, what should what am I passionate about enough to be speaking to individuals about as much as possible? So, and I think that sometimes people want to narrow down to just one niche. And as we talked about in the past 30 minutes, I'm never going to be, in one particular box. So, these are two things that I find extremely passionate, or I'm extremely passionate about, and I think others are as well. And I see how they intertwine much more than people expect. So, for instance, like I said, it's not just about my marital relationship. It's not about just my parents, and I relationship. It's also about making relationships with an individual like yourself. We're getting to know each other. We're getting to be like, okay, I think I remember somebody wanting to invest, in properties in Ohio. Kyle's going to be my first dial. And so that's kind of super important within the real estate space, but also as Kyle moves on to the next phase of his life, Kyle's going to be, meeting a woman in the near future, and he's going to, start leveling up. And so, what I find a lot of times on the dating side of things, what I call high-powered males, typically look for the grass is greener at some point on the other side. And my focus with high-powered males in that particular coaching program will be to be like the grass. Why don't you just as you're leveling up in your life, making sure that the grass is green on your side, making sure that you're, again, as we talked about before, treating your partner, treating your family, treating your relationships as well as possible to make sure that they are, feeling that they are a part of your journey. Because they realistically are, most times people just go shoot and then they're like, oh, forget all the other people in the past, so that's part of my why. And then specifically why I would say when I was younger, I would not be as focused, or excuse me, I would tell people that I wanted to make a lot of money, but I wouldn't be focused on sharing the why as to why I wanted to do that. And so now I'm very confident in sharing that is I want to make a lot of money to be able to give it away as much as possible. So if somebody comes to me in need of some finances to be able to go on a missions trip, or my wife and I formed a foundation where our focus is working with youth that are aging out of the foster system, working on helping single parents continue their education, which is sometimes a little bit hard, suicide prevention, and then also suicide awareness, and then also investing in international businesses. So my wife and I like to travel a lot, and so when we get to interact with people from these communities, just being able to like ask have good conversations, be like, what do you actually want to be doing? Like if you're working a smaller, tourism geared job, what do you actually want to be doing? And can we help you get there? So that is my focus. Is, again, I think God has given me the gift to have this ambition, have this vision to make a lot of money, and then make a lot of impact with the money that I am able to make. So that's the overall why.
Awesome. Yeah, I think our goals are kind of aligned there. Like you said at the beginning, you were talking about leveling up and the grass being. You said instead of like saying, "Hey, the grass is greener on the other side," like just what did you say about the
I
grass
said
side?
instead of keep the grass green on your side.
Yeah, I like that. I
Yeah,
think it's important to like instead of chasing things, whatever it may be, like if we level up and keep working on ourselves, we'll attract the thing that we want. So I think that's
absolutely.
awesome. So yeah, I really like that. Um, I wanted to ask you. So you said the first line on your bio is a skilled negotiator, right? So
Yeah.
man, I would love to be better at negotiating. So how did you, I guess, learn your skills? Is there a certain thing that you would attribute that to?
Yeah, I would say that when I was younger, or I tend to be a little bit argumentative, but I think you just foster the relationship building within the argumentative, and that you still can get what you would like to get out of it without it being like, abrasive. So, again, when I'm looking at things or making investments on behalf of my clients, or my investors, my sole focus is not just myself in this; it's to invest with purpose. That's our whole mantra, my company, the Pivotal Investment. So when I'm going in with the thought process like I've got so many people behind me, essentially, or with me, that I need to look out for. And so at no point am I going to lose that in my conversation with an opposing party. And then on top of that, treating this opposing party as a partner, and this, we want to get to the same. We want to get to the same vein. You want to sell the product. I want to invest in the product. So is there a way that we can figure this out so that you guys are happy and we're happy? And so I think that came along from some peer counseling training, and went to law school for a year as well. So some of that helped out, and then just interacting with a lot of different individuals over the years and getting to know different people, treating every single person that I meet with respect is kind of the focus there. And so that's kind of where you bring it to the negotiation table. Is, hey, we're gonna try to win here. We're all gonna walk away with some sort of happiness. So,
Love it, like a win-win situation for
as
everyone
much as
involved.
possible.
I
Yeah.
love it. Yeah. Before we end it, I'd like
Yeah.
to close it with a couple of questions.
Yeah.
So this, like I guess my mission statement is to help others find their voice and to achieve their God given potential. Like I guess I was in a place where I used to be super shy, and I guess I'm still a little bit, but and I'm introverted, but I've been working on that a lot, and I just want to help people. If they're like think that hey they should do something, but they're kind of in fear of what people may think of them, or whatever it may be. I just want to help them to be able to step into a new um, become uncomfortable. Like everything, I
Hmm.
know that everything I want basically lies on the other side of that uncomfortable feeling. So,
Yeah.
what advice would you have for someone like that? That
Yeah. I think that my advice would be that God made you. So when you walk into a room, remember that. When it's uncomfortable for you to be able to walk up to somebody and shake their hand, and maybe they're 45 and seem like they're well established. They pulled up in a Lamborghini. God still made them. God made you. So you focus on the fact that like I know what I have to bring to the table. I'm very valuable, valuable enough for God to put me on this earth to get me to this room, and that you come in on an even playing field when you think like that versus, oh my gosh, oh wow, I'm in awe of these people around me. And so that's what we talked about earlier. Is I think no matter if you come from an educated background or me spending a ton of money on an effort on education, we're the same. God made you, God made me, and that doesn't make a difference in my mind as to whether I'm going to work with somebody. I think what Kyle brings to the table, or what individuals bring to the table, is what they bring to the table, the value. So, and I think it's okay to be shy. I don't think you necessarily need to be like I'm very self confident. I'm very extroverted, but I think it's okay to be shy. I think as long as you still bring some sort of value to the table, and sometimes you have to step out of your comfort zone again, like you said, network is your net worth. So putting on a face sometimes and being like, okay, I'm going to do it. I'm going to shake hands with Sam because I know he's super extroverted and he'll get me to where, I want to be. But then it's okay to have some reserve times to be like, okay, I'm going to go back to my true personality, take a break from this extrovertedness, and then go back out there. So just remember, yeah, God made you.
Awesome. I love that. Yeah, so I guess a Bible verse, probably my favorite Bible verse is in Isaiah 43, verse 1. It says, "Fear not, for I have redeemed you. I have called you by name. You are mine." And I love that verse. And I think of that verse a lot when I think of that, what you just talked about. So yeah, that's great advice, and appreciate you for sharing that.
Yeah.
And final question: if you had to start everything over your career, would you do anything differently? And if so, what would it be?
Yeah, I'd skip everything and go straight to commercial real estate.
Okay.
I think. I mean, that's a succinct version of it. But I would. I think from 18, like knowing and leaving my parents' house, still, I was able to. Very fortunate to meet a lot of individuals over the time. So keeping track, like a CRM, is super crucial. I tell everyone, if you just your customer retention management system, I guess, I don't even know if that's the correct version, but or verbiage, but just keeping track of all the people that you're meeting. Like, how can I serve these people? And it doesn't become bothersome if you're trying to serve people. If you're really truly saying like, okay, I just had a great conversation with Sam. Sam said that he wants to invest, in developments. Maybe I can pitch him some land in the future. But Sam, I want to know, like, what are your goals? How can I help you achieve them? And so I think that, you keep track of that in an automated system as well, so that it's constantly being like, hey Sam, I just wanted to check in with you, make sure that I provide you as much value as possible, and then also maintaining that value over time, whether or not I turn around and invest with you immediately, or providing value to individuals, whether or not it's a turnaround. Maybe they're not going to invest with you right away, but your focus still should be to provide value to people as much as possible. Like I feel like there's a number of people that will have now turned around and said, hey Sam, like, I've got 500 or 100, a million that I've just been, in touch with for a long time. It's not necessarily, my goal of being like, oh my gosh, I have this deal ready to go. Like, are you ready? And I think that's much better in the space to just continue to serve, become their investment advisor.
I think that's a good way to end it. To serve and provide value. That's a great way to end it. Man, I had so much fun today. It was exciting to get to know you, and I'm excited to learn more about what you're doing. I'll keep following you and to see what you'll accomplish with mission and all that. So, man, it was a good time. And where can people find you?
Oh yeah, you can on Instagram go to the Pivotal Investment. That's where I am. You can also go to www.thepivatalinvestment.com. You can add me on Facebook. Feel free to do that. Facebook.com/Sam Diego, SAM Diego 20. So lots of options. I like to just, if you're gonna add me on Facebook, personal Facebook, shoot me a message because I like to know who's adding me and like where you're from. So tell me you're coming from this podcast.
Okay, sounds good. And I'll drop those links in the description as well. Awesome. Oh, hey, I really appreciate it, Sam. It was
excited to keep seeing you level up too, Kyle.
Yeah.
Cool.
See you.
All right, guys.